Hello and welcome to this crocheted miter block poncho. This is the assembly portion of where we will place all the squares and triangles that we made into our poncho. You'll notice here that I have a cowl neckline, but if you make it long enough, it'll be good enough for a hoodie. You'll also notice that I have in the tutorial where you can place ties on it as well. Our poncho comes about to the waistline and it has fringe at the bottoms of the squares and in between. Our sleeves have fitted wrists, ribbing, and the sleeve is fitted and opened at the bottom. Let's go ahead and finish making our poncho. Let's begin now. The tools and materials that we will be using is the wool ease, thick and quick. The color I am using is gray marble. The other color is called claret, of the same type. We'll be using a pair of scissors and a large eye tapestry needle. Here are the blocks, my 4 triangles, my 8 solid squares, and my 16 mitered squares. In this picture here, you see I have drawn out the mitered squares and the mitered triangles, and here are the solid squares. We will be making 2 of this particular layout. This across the top here is the cowl neckline or the hoodie with the ties. It is your choice. And here is the ribbed cuff, which will be at the bottom of the 2, because you have your front and your back. So this will be the rib cuff for our sleeves. Let me go ahead and show you how we're going to lay it out, and I'm going to put it on a flat surface and use the squares. Before I lay it out, I'm going to leave the picture just like this. I would like for you to screenshot a picture so that way you can print it out if you need to. So here's the picture. Just going to leave it here for a few seconds. If you need to pause the video or refer back to it, at least it'll be here long enough so that you can see it. I'm going to stop now because I've shown it for 30 seconds. Before we begin our layout, I wanted to point out to you the right and the wrong side of our block. The right side is where you can see the finished stitch and how it looks the way you created it. If we flip it over, you can see the wrong side and all the additional lines and chains and everything that makes a particular stitch. When putting your blocks together, make sure you have the right on the top and the wrong will be on the inside. So here's our pattern layout, and what I have done here is I have laid out the mitered blocks, the mitered squares, and the mitered solids so that you can see how it looks when you lay it out. Now you'll notice over here I have my additional blocks that will be for the other side. What we're doing here is we're laying out just the one side to get started. When we start to sew our blocks, we will be sewing along one side at a time. Okay, and then when we come to this side, we will sew it according to how much yarn we have on our blocks. We will use additional yarn to help sew a lot of it together. Let's go back to the table, and we're going to go ahead and start sewing our blocks. The first blocks that we will be sewing is this mitered square with the line in it and a solid. We will join this right here together. So I'm going to take the tail from the maroon colored block. Now, to thread our needle, to make it easy, what you want to do is put the yarn between your 4 fingers here. Bring the needle up from the bottom and make the yarn tight around the needle. Then take the needle out of the folded yarn and work it through the eye of the needle. You see how it comes through? If you were to use the cut end, it would continue to fray and possibly distort your yarn. Okay, so I'm right-handed and I'll be going this direction. We're going to use a stitch that is known as the ladder stitch. So we're going to go through the end here and pick up some of the stitch. Let me bring my camera in closer. So after we've picked up a little bit here, bring your yarn through. Now these other tails, we'll be using those at another time. Now when we come to the other side, go right through the center and pick up part of 2 stitches and bring your yarn through. Now I'm showing you the slow version, so for those who are beginners can learn how to do this as well. Where our yarn came out here, we want to go about the same distance that we had from the other block. So we want to come over just a little bit here and go through. Okay, I'm going through the center of the chain look on the top, and then pull our yarn through. And now we're going to go back to the other one. Now we came out here, so we're going to skip this one. We're going to go to the next one. So can you see how I picked up there? This is what's known as a ladder stitch, or in some places or some cases it can also be known as a running stitch. But we're just picking up a little from each side. Came out here, so we want to go down here. Okay, so continue that all the way to the edge of the block right here. So once you've gotten down here to the other end, take your yarn and snug it up just a little bit, but yet pull it back so that you can have that ease in there so it doesn't look puckery. Then I'm going to take and go through this last one here, come in from behind, and we're going to do like a short weaving stitch. So we're going to go, I'm going to use the same color here, and then after I go through, I'm going to go over the top of this one. So whatever color yarn you're going to be weaving into, make sure that it's the same color so that you don't see the yarn in part of your other color. So I'm going to leave my little tail here. I'm going to cut it later. So this is one block sewn together, and it holds together real nicely. So the next block that we're going to be doing, since we did these two, will be the miter. We'll add it here. Then we'll do the triangle, which we'll add onto that. So go ahead and add these, and then you can go ahead and do the same with these rows, this, and I'll show you how to add up all these when we're done. Alright, so I have completed, and unfortunately due to the amount of space that I have on my desk here, I'm going to have to drag it down and show you. Okay, so I have two of these. Here's one, and here's number two. Okay, then our next picture shows the miter, the solid, and the miter. So I'm going to bring that out and show you I got that one done. Oops, that's the wrong side. We'll flip it over. And then we have the miter and the solid, and I have that done as well. And then of course we got our one square. Okay, so let's go ahead and start to sew them together in the long section right here. So you notice at the top we have a triangle, and at the other top we have another triangle. So we have three squares, a triangle, and three squares. So I have mine together right here. Now you'll see that I have them, they're not in the right place, so let's slide it down, and this is what we will have. You notice we have our triangle up here, right here, and here's our other triangle. We got our square, and here's our other square, and then we got our solid and our solid. And I want to show you how that does match our picture. I'm going to turn it that way. So here's our triangle, okay? So we're going to go ahead and sew these squares up. I'm going to slide it down here. Now these extra tails that we have, like I asked you to do here, these are what are sewing it up. I find that it sews up really quick, and I like that. So we're going to take and do the same running stitch here, or the ladder stitch. So when this yarn here stops, it will stop up here at the top. And make sure that your lines of your colors are in the same plane. Okay, now here where we have our extra stuff, where I asked you to carry the yarn over, when you do your running stitch, bring it on top of it, and it'll go onto the inside of your poncho. So go ahead and do your ladder stitch, making sure that it lines up. Weave in your ends, and then pick up your next yarn and go on down. So do this whole edge. Let me bring out my picture. You do this all the way down, and then bring the next one up all the way down. Make sure it looks like your picture, and the next one, and then you'll have just that one square. So here's what the front or the back or just one side looks like. I'm getting excited. Now create the same for the other side using the sequence that I just showed you how to do, and then I will show you how to finish it off, and we'll put our neckline and our ribbing on. After you have sewn your two pieces, on the back side we're going to have a lot of extra tails and stuff. If it's not attached here on the edge, I encourage you to either, I'm going to put a square knot in mine and pull it tight, and then you can take these ends, either you can cut them or you can weave them in the same color that they are. So go ahead and sew in all your loose ends. Like I said, along the edge, go ahead and save those so that we can go ahead and sew our blocks together. If you find that if you come to an edge like this one where you see no yarn, what we can do is get some from our skein and cut a section, and we'll sew it together there. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you in just a minute. So here in front of you, you can see I have the bottom section with the wrong side facing up, and here's the sleeve area and the neckline with our two mitered triangles up top. What we're going to do is we're going to take our other piece here and lay it exactly on top of what you see, the triangles on top of the triangles, and the sides coming down the sides. We're going to go ahead and sew up on the sides right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll up the side over here, and then here's the side that we want to line up. You want to line up the top and the bottom, and then right here along this edge all the way up to where our triangle, we want to sew this edge together using the same running and ladder stitch. So you will see how your lines will line up, and make sure that your squares and all line up. Here I have the yarn or the tail left from this back block, so I'm going to use that to sew down here, and then up here I still have tails left from my maroon or my claret color. This particular one I don't have any yarn left, so I'm going to have to cut one from my skein. And then when we sew this, make sure you have a tail left here, because we're going to be sewing some of the triangle depending on what size neck opening we're going to use. So do this side all the way up to the triangle and have some yarn left over, and do the other side, and then we'll measure for the neck opening that we'll need. Now I've tried mine on. I have both of my sleeves sewn, or the side seams here, and I have found that at the middle of both of these triangles where they line up will give me enough headroom here for my cowl, and it will sit on my shoulders. I encourage you to try it on, sew it up to your centers, and if you need to bring it in more for whatever fit you desire for your neckline, to go ahead and do that. So here I still have my yarn for the side, so I'm going to sew up to the center here, and I'm going to reinforce it a couple of times and then weave it back in. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll go ahead and start on the cowl neckline. What you see here is the center of my triangles. Okay, And when we first did this, we had 5 single crochets. So what I have done is I've gone through it once. I came out over here. So I'm going to go through it again to reinforce, because that's going to be a stress point on your neckline area here for this poncho. So it doesn't hurt to reinforce it and go around it a couple of times, and that'll help hold that in, besides the stitching that we're going to be doing for our cowl. So that's my suggestion for this neckline, and on to the cowl. Now don't forget to bring out your size 10mm crochet hook. I know I forgot to put that in the materials needed and tools needed, but don't forget our hook. Here I have the opening for my neckline. Now I know that if yours has this little bend down here, we will cover that with some stitches so it'll all be normal. So as we go around, we're going to make us a nice neckline size. Now the color I'm going to be using to go around my neck is the claret color, or the maroon. So let's start with a little tail here and a slip knot on our hook. All the stitches that we'll be doing on this will be of double crochet. So let's start here at our corner, just on the other side of it. We're going to start with a standing double crochet. So place your finger on your knot, yarn over, and into the edge here, draw up a loop, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. This makes our first double crochet. And into our next one, now we don't have stitches per se, so you want to create the distance the same. Let's go up to our neckline where the center drops between the two right here, and we will do basically the same thing for the other side as well. So I'm going to show you how to do that and how to do the shoulders as well. So you see that I'm finding what spacing I have. I try not to pick up one yarn. I always try to pick up 2. You know, while I was trying this thing on, I showed it to my husband, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, my mother would love this." I was so excited. Okay, so here we are at our little V drop here. So I've done my stitches here. Okay, so at our V drop, we're going to do a treble crochet. So yarn over twice, and we're going to drop down into the center here, and we're going to place 3 trebles there. So yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, and yarn over through 2. You'll find that'll give us up to the same height that we need. So let's do this another. Place your finger on the loop, yarn over twice. Remember to hold your tension with your fingers, and that'll help make it so your stitches don't look like they're stretched out. Okay, so draw up a loop, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, and yarn over through the last 2. Let's do one more time in the same stitch. Okay, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Okay, and that'll give us a nice even height here. And then we're going to go ahead and do another double crochet across. Sometimes it gets a little hard. Let's move on to our next stitch. Okay. Now if you want to make sure that you have the same amount of stitches as you did when you first started, count how many, the location you started at, and count how many up to the 3. That way you'll know that you'll have the same amount. And okay, so I'm going to do that too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I did not start exactly at the corner. Okay, so I have 3. Here's 4. Okay, that's from our blocks. I'm just going to tuck it in. 5. 6. I'm going to go through this right here. 7. And then 8. And that'll put me about the same place I started on. This one's being a little difficult for me. Okay. Yeah, my husband is from Egypt, and we're planning on going there in December. So his mother loves shawls and ponchos and stuff, and this would be perfect for her. Plus it's super warm. Oh my gosh, this thing will keep all. I've already tried it on. It feels so good. Okay, so here we are at our shoulder seam. Enough of my personal business. So what we're going to do is basically do the same thing like we did before. We're going to put 3 trebles right here into this corner. Whoops, sorry, I shook my camera. So go ahead and do 3 trebles here. There's 1. Here's 2. And here's 3. Okay, and then you will be going around doing the same thing that we did here in the front. When you get over here to this side, do your 3 trebles in the drop space and then slip stitch to your first double crochet, and I'll meet you there. Also count your stitches to make sure that you have the same amount so that it doesn't look lopsided as well. Alright, here I am at the end. I'm going to slip stitch into my first double crochet and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now this will count as a double crochet, so we're going to go into the next one and double crochet. You will double crochet around all the way until you get to the end of the row and slip stitch. You will keep going till you get the desired height for your cowl. If you want to do this as a hoodie, you would go approximately 12 inches from the shoulder up, and this will be enough to cover your head. I will show you that part, and I'll also show you how to make ties at the end of the video. Our next thing that we will be going into is our ribbing on our cuffs, and so I will meet you there. Let's go ahead and finish the choice that you want, either the cowl, which should be about 4 inches in height, or the hoodie, which will be 12 inches. So before we move on to the ribbing of the cuffs, I wanted to show you, this is what I've done for my cowl / hoodie. I changed the color towards the end. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of the gray, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows of the claret or the burgundy color here. And it fits perfectly. After we do the ribbing, I'll show you how to make the ties and little tassels or pom-poms if you want on the ends. Let's move on to the ribbing. Now this part you see here is what we sewed together as the long end. So when you open it up, you have the miters looking like a rectangle look. So if you bring them back together, before we do any ribbing, we're going to stitch a little bit here to help in the holding of the sleeve opening. Now, if you do choose just to leave this sleeve opening sewn with no ribbing, that's perfectly fine. It is your choice for your poncho. I'm choosing to add just like a little 2 or 3 row ribbing here to help bring it together so it'll stay here on my wrist. So I'm going to use some of the gray to go ahead and add just a little bit here, and then I'm going to start crocheting the first row. So go ahead and start some thread right here on your needle, and let's get started. Now in doing this, you're going to seem like it's a little backwards, but hear me out. So what we're going to do is on each one of these corners here you have the 5 double crochets. Go ahead and insert through the center of both sides. Here's 1, 2, 3 right here. So here I've got my needle into both of them. Bring it through with quite a long tail, and we're going to go through those 2, 3 times. Here's 1, and here's number 2. Notice how I haven't cut this, and I'll show you the secret why here in just a second. And here I got 3. That'll make a nice tight little end piece right there. Now we're going to go ahead and do our same ladder stitch. So come on down till you kind of equal with the top right here. Finish it off, weave in your ends, and I will meet you with your crochet hook ready to start on this end right here. So with our hooks ready, I encourage you to pull out some yarn, and now we're going to pick up where our sewing left off. So take your yarn and just take it and wrap it over your hook, and then in the first stitch space do like a single crochet and chain 2. Let me bring my camera in so you can see it better. Thank you for waiting. For those who are new with me, I use a GoPro camera. It does excellent focus no matter how close or how far away you are. Anyway, so now what we're going to do here is we're going to do a 3 together, which is more like a decrease. This is a double crochet. So as if you were going to do a double crochet and leave the 1 loop on the hook. Yarn over into the next stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over through 2, do not complete your stitch yet. One more time, we'll be in the chain 1 space, bring up a loop, yarn over through 2. we have 3 half done double crochets, so yarn over and through all 3 and snug up your loop. We're going to do this one more time. Yarn over through the first stitch, yarn over through 2, our second one, yarn over through 2, and our third one, which would be in that chain 1 space, and then yarn over through all 4. Okay, you see how we've decreased the last 6 stitches down to 2. Now in our next 2 stitches, we're going to do 1 double crochet per stitch. Okay, so we've already created our repeat, 2 decreases that has 3 double crochets, and then 2 single double crochets. Let's do this one more time. Yarn over, going through the chain 1 space, bring up a loop, yarn over through 2, yarn over through our next stitch, and yarn over through our third one. We have 4 loops on the hook, yarn over through all of them into our next decrease. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, yarn over through all 4. Now we do have to turn our work some. I have mine sitting on my lap as well as in front of the camera here. So our next 2 stitches will be double crochet. Here's 1 and here's 2. Okay, repeat what we've just done all the way around, and when you get here you should complete it with 2, when you get to the end you should be completing it with 2 double crochets, not as a decrease, and I will meet you there. So at the end of this row you want to find the top of our 3 together cluster, which is this one right here because it's long, and then we're going to slip stitch. Okay, now let's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and in each stitch around let's place 1 double crochet, and I'll meet you at the end of the row. So at the end of our row we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch of the top of the chain 3, and then we're going to chain 3. Now to do our ribbing for this, yarn over, we're going to go through the front one. That means we're going to take our hook and go behind the post. Pull up a loop, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Now we're going to go to the back side of our loop. We're going to come up from behind, take the hook, go over the top and through, and if you fold your work forward a little bit you'll be able to pick up your loop, go through 2, go through 2. Let's do this one more time. Yarn over, we're going to do the front side. So we're going to go under, and then we're going to bring the yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Let's do the back side. Yarn over, come from behind, go through the front and go out through the back, fold your work over, bring your yarn through there, through the loop and everything, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Continue the ribbing all the way around. When you get to the end, slip stitch at the top of the chain. So here I made it all the way around. I am going to slip stitch into the top of the chain, and this is going to be long enough for what I choose to wear. Go ahead and do the same for the sleeve on the other side, and we're going to weave this end in, and then we're going to go ahead and make our ties for the hoodie. For the making of the ties, I'm going to be using one of each one of the colors here, and we're going to make a chain stitch that's going to be long enough for you to tie it around. So my suggestion is to get out your tape measurer and go ahead and measure, and I'm going to use about 45 inches or 115 I guess centimeters or millimeters. I'm not familiar with that. So I'm going to do 45 inches. So before you start with your slip knot, go ahead and leave yourself a tail on there, so that way if you choose to add a pom-pom or something, or a tassel, it will be there to help assist you. So to make our chain, we're just going to go over and through, and just keep right on going until you get the length you desire. Mine is going to be 45 inches. So here in front of you, I have placed my poncho on where the side seams are, and here's the center front. Okay, so if we draw our line up, here is the center of our cowl. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count over about 5 stitches on each side, and this will be where we start and stop the loading of the little crocheted lanyard that we made for the ties. So we can take our hook and come through, and that'll help start to pull it through. Or if you choose, you can finger weave. You will just go through each stitch takes a little bit longer, but that's what you'll do in placing of the ties, and then the other one will come out over here. So go ahead and do that, and then we will be finished with our poncho. In front of you, you will see some cut lengths of yarn. The first one is 17 inches. These will be used for the tassels on the chain. The second one here will be the fringe at the bottom of the squares, and I have cut them to 28 inches, and I have cut 2 of the gray and 2 of the maroon for each bottom of the square. For the tassels, I've cut 3 of the gray and 3 of the maroon. To place the fringe on, we want to find half of our strings here. Then we're going to come up from behind and here we have our loop. Take the whole amount and pull it down. And here we have fringe at the bottom. Do that for each one of your squares if you desire. You can even put it up here as well. For attaching our tassels, we're going to find the center of our yarn as we've folded it. I'm going to place it right up here, and then take of the two, place a nice tight knot and turn it into a square knot, and then just let it all hang. Now if your ties are a little bit longer, go ahead and cut them till they're all the same length. And here you have a nice little tie. Or, I mean, a tassel. And here is our completed poncho. You notice here that we have our nice sleeves that will fit snug around our wrists. We have fringe. We have tassels. We have a cowl/hoodie, long enough to cover your head on those super cold days, or just enough to cover your neck. I really enjoyed having you with me during this process of assembling our poncho. I do hope you come back for another crocheted video. My name is Garnet, and I am so happy to be able to share what I know with crochet or about crochet with you. Thank you again for watching. I hope to see you again. Bye-bye.